RPN, Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. DXDX 693 kHz. Ang inyong Radyo Ronda sa syudad sa mga kampiyon. Live to the world, pinaagi sa FB page, karon mag-download na. Pinaagi sa Google Play o Apple Store, YouTube o Twitter. Alang sa mas ipakusgan ng mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran o kalingawan. DXDX Size 93, ang mas ipakusgan na inyong Radyo Ronda.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
With artists, which is why every morning on New Day we will keep you up to speed and put the spotlight on the top celebrities and of course their upcoming projects. So you can catch New Day news and more every morning at 6 a.m. only here on CNN Philippines.
I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to News Night, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Tonight on the program, consumers brace for another round of fuel price hikes, while a number of areas in Metro Manila will go waterless next week. Continuing gains and some challenges in the COVID-19 fight, cases in Metro Manila are on the decline, but experts report surges in some areas outside the national capital region. And get to know one of the senatorial aspirants in the 2022 elections. We'll have an up-close conversation with human rights lawyer Neri Colmenares. We begin with stories that will hit millions of Filipinos hard. Oil companies are carrying out fuel price hikes for the 8th straight week, effective tomorrow at 6 in the morning. Clean Fuel, Flying V, Petrogas, Phoenix Petroleum, PTT Philippines, Sea Oil, Total, Unioil, and Petron will hike gasoline prices by 1 peso and 80 centavos per liter. Diesel prices from the same companies will be up by 1 peso and 50 centavos a liter, while Flying V, Sea Oil, and Petron will impose a 1 peso and 30 centavo increase for every liter of kerosene. Other oil companies are expected to follow suit. The Energy Department earlier warned that these series of price hikes may persist until next year. Fuel prices have been rising globally because of increasing demand. The Transportation Department says it is looking for ways to help drivers and operators in the wake of rising fuel prices. The DOTR says it is working on a proposed subsidy. The agency is coordinating with the Energy Department on a uniform discount in gas stations for public utility vehicles, especially jeepneys. We've yet to receive a statement from the trade industry on how the recent hikes are affecting prices of basic goods. Well, western portions of Metro Manila will go waterless for almost 4 days next week because of flood control projects. On your screens are the affected areas, including parts of Las Piñas, Makati, Manila, Parañaque, Pasay, Bacoor, Cavite City, Imus, as well as some towns in Cavite Province. Some other towns in Cavite Province. Water concessionaire Maynilad says this is in line with the pipe realignment initiative of the Public Works Department. Maynilad adds it will install 14 stationary water tanks and deploy 60 more mobile water tanks to serve areas that will have no water for 3 straight days. Maynilad urges customers to store enough water for the period. For the complete list of affected barangays, visit our website at cnnphilippines.com. A United Nations report says global hunger is on the rise as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and over half of those suffering are in Asia. Hunger is also among the top personal concerns for Filipinos based on a Pulse Asia survey. Tristan Nadalo tells us more.
From the kitchen to the streets, Edna Rabina, a mother of 5, now works as a pedicab driver since the start of COVID-19 pandemic last year. The 48-year-old mom used to work in a canteen. Her husband was also rendered jobless, so she needs to make ends meet.
Kahit pa paano, kaya ko naman iraos ang pamilya ko. Tsaka ang hirap ng buhay ngayon, sir, ang hirap ng walang pasahero. Inaabot kami ng gabi dito para lang makabili ng pagkain eh. Makabili ng itlog at saka tuyo, okay na to eh. Hindi kami makabiling baboy, hindi kami makabili. Yun lang pong kaya namin bilhin eh.
Few streets away from Edna, Rowena Kaabay shares the hardship of putting food on the table since the pandemic started. Most of the time, her family resorts to borrowing money to sustain their daily needs.
Minsan, nakakapangutang din po sa pang-araw-araw kasi yun talagang pagkain, hindi mo pwedeng iliban yun. Yun ang pinakaano ng sa pagkain. Yung bahay minsan, siyempre, nadidelay yung bayad.
Like Edna and Rowena, most Filipinos believe that having enough food every day is among the top personal concerns in a recent Pulse Asia survey. It ranked third after staying healthy and having job security. The State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2020 report of the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization also showed that more than 700 million people globally experience hunger and can be considered undernourished due to the pandemic. Half of these numbers came from Asia. Majority of people undernourished in 2020 came from South Asia, Southeast Asia, Central, and Western Asia. In June 2021, the Social Weather Stations or SWS reported that 3.4 million Filipino families experienced hunger. The Social Welfare Development signed a memorandum of agreement in September with various government agencies and groups to end hunger and poverty in the country. The Duterte administration also formed a Task Force Zero Hunger last year to focus on eradicating hunger in the country, ensuring stable food supply and partnerships with the private sector. But for ordinary Filipinos like Edna and Rowena, these initiatives have yet to make an impact on their daily lives made more difficult by the existing and exhausting health crisis. Teresa Nadalo, CNN Philippines.
Independent researchers flagged the surge in COVID-19 cases in Zamboanga City. The Okta Research Group placed the city under critical risk after it recorded 221 infections from October 10 to the 16th. Healthcare utilization there is also critical at 87% and 73% for intensive care unit occupancy. The group also raised concerns about the significant spike in Naga City, Bicol, which logged 61 cases over the past week. Okta says while the hospitalization rate there is not yet critical, the positivity and daily attack rates are very high. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 situation continues to improve here in Metro Manila. The virus reproduction rate dropped to 0.58, meaning transmission is slowing down. Okta adds the average daily attack rate may decline to moderate from high risk by next week. The country logged over 6,900 cases today, the second straight day that infections fell below 7,000 since the first week of August. Active cases are now over 68,000, which is 2.5% of the total case count. Okta says vaccination is a key factor in the decline, but reminds everyone not to let their guards down.
Like this kind of crowding in areas. Definitely we need to maintain minimum public health standards because even though the trend is downward, cases are going down. We're averaging about 1,400 cases now per day in Metro Manila, which is far less than almost 6,000 average during the peak of the surge. But still, we should not be complacent.
A quick look now at the country's COVID-19 vaccination numbers since the immunization drive began in March. Government data shows that over 51,400,000 vaccines have been administered as of October 15th. Now, of that number, more than 27,500,000 are the first dose, while nearly 24 million people are fully inoculated. Over 90 million vaccines have so far arrived in the country. Now, vaccine manufacturers need to apply to amend their emergency use authorization to include a third COVID-19 dose. The country will follow a World Health Organization recommendation to give a third shot to senior citizens and immunocompromised people who received Sinovac and Sinopharm vaccines. But the health department says this cannot be done without amendments to the current EUA.
Sinasabi ng ebidensya at mga eksperto, ang mga immunocompromised individuals, for example, cannot mount that appropriate immune response to just these 2 doses. Kaya kailangan pa ng isang dose para makumpleto at mas maproteksyonan sila at maboost ang kanilang immune system.
The DOH adds the third dose is not considered a booster shot and will be treated as part of the primary care series. Coming up, with many Filipinos abroad not yet registered to vote, will Comelec key calls to extend the registration period, and a former party list lawmaker and human rights lawyer is gunning for a Senate seat. His third try. We get up close with Mary Colmenares later on in the program. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Also makes the cheesiest? Exhibit X, my cheese. Exhibit TJ, cheesiest. Ay! Totoo nga! Walang duda, kids can tell na ang cheesiest ng number 1 tender juicy cheese dog. But DJ cheese dog ka naman!
Bawat patak, may sarap, may lakas, sulit. Red Horse Beer.
Using Doña Elena olive oil helps elevate the spices and flavors of my dishes, making their aroma and taste more delicious.
I use Doña Elena not just for the restaurant, but also for cooking at home. For good quality oil, use it more at home because you are serving your family.
Because you and your family deserve only the best.
Make it olive oil, make it Doña Elena.
From Flyers.
Kabilang ba kayo sa mga Pilipino na nahihirapan sa mga transaksyon dahil wala o kulang ang mga valid IDs?
Huwag nang mag-alala dahil narito na po ang PhilSys, ang identification system ng bawat Pilipino.
Meron lamang pong 3 steps para makapagrehistro at makakuha ng PhilID. Para sa Step 1 registration, pumunta lang sa register.philsys.gov.ph para makapag-register sa PhilSys online.
Sa pamamagitan ng ID natin, ang bawat Pilipino ay meron ng valid proof of identity.
At mas mapapadali na ang ating mga public and private transactions. Kaya ano pang hinihintay nyo?
Ayaan na sina nanay, tatay at ang buong pamilya. At mag-register na.
Ito ang PhilSys, ID natin to.
Discovery Plus has arrived in the Philippines. Your new home of larger-than-life entertainment and unforgettable characters is here. Subscribe now at 129 pesos for the first year. Don't miss out.
Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. One lawmaker pleading with the Commission on Elections over demands to reopen voter registration for Filipinos abroad. The poll body gave a 2-week extension for overseas voters to register before Philippine embassies and consular offices, which lapsed on October 14th. In Dubai, at least one voter had to wait 9 hours to complete the process. Senator Amy Marcos says extension may be offered in countries with a high number of Filipino residents. In response, the Comelec says it will discuss the proposal on Wednesday.
Kung kaya pa namin i-stretch yung sa OFO. Eh, stretch na po siya, pero i-try pa din namin. Magandang idea yan, Honors. na we will cater doon lang sa parang NCR nila, yung pinakamaraming hindi pa nakapag-register.
Here at home, we're flashing on your screens the list of select areas where voter registration is ongoing until October 30th. The schedule, which is open even on Saturdays, include Metro Manila, Quezon Province, Ilocos Sur, and 3 independent cities in Cebu, namely Cebu City, Mandaue City, and Lapu-Lapu City. Former Solicitor General Florin Hilbay has resigned from Acción Democrático, the political party that supported his senatorial bid in 2019. Hilbay thanks the party for all the support given him in the last election and assures them of his respect for choosing to endorse Isko Moreno, the mayor of Manila. Hilbay explains he left because he is supporting Vice President Leni Robredo's presidential bid. Hilbay believes Robredo understands the threat posed by the Marcoses. She will hold President Duterte and cronies accountable for their alleged crimes, and he says she will stand up to China on the West Philippine Sea dispute. Meantime, Acción Democrático admits that while they lost a good number, or it lost a good number in Hilbay, they gained thousands more members to contest in the 2022 elections. Bayan Muna Party List Representative Carlos Zarate says the Makabayan bloc is still waiting for talks with Vice President Leni Robredo as the group has yet to throw its support to a particular presidential aspirant. Zarate says the Makabayan bloc's processes should be respected as he denied former Senator Antonio Trillanes' claim that the group does not support Robredo's bid. He says all groups under the Makabayan coalition should be consulted before it decides on who to support in the upcoming polls. Zarate adds the coalition is also in talks with Senator Manny Pacquiao and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, who are also both running for president. Makabayan bloc senatorial bet Nery Colmenares trended on social media recently as netizens call for his inclusion in Robredo's senatorial slate. Joining us now is the former Makabayan Party List Representative Nery Colmenares. Attorney Nery, magandang gabi po sa inyo. So parang there are two issues here, yung ang inclusion or non-inclusion po ninyo so far sa slate ni Vice President Leni Robredo at ni Senator Kiko Pangilinan, senatorial slate by the way, and the non-declaration or ang Makabayan hindi pa rin pumipili na kung sino ang kanilang or inyong presidential bet. But let's first begin with this, sir, yung unang issue doon. For some reason, kumbaga para bang people don't want the left to forget its past, no? So we've seen several of Leni Robredo's supporters point out on social media that in 1986, for example, nag-boycott pa kayo ng eleksyon. Hindi po kayo sumama doon sa opposition that had the unified slate of Cory Aquino and Doy Laurel as president and VP. And then in 2016, nakipag-alyansa daw po kayo with President Duterte, with several joining his cabinet. Tapos ngayon, para bang out in the cold na naman kayo daw, no? What's going on, no? Bakit parang inuungkat po ito? Bakit nilalabas na naman ito? What's going on in the forces that are supposed to be arrayed against the Duterte and Marcos, the possible Duterte and Marcos team up?
Yes, well, actually, yung 2016, it's been dredged up again. But I would like to express assured yan talaga. We supported Grace po until the very end. So, klaro yan sa amin. No? So, sa akin, hindi dapat iungkatin yan. Pero sige, kung ungkatin man yan, ito ang issue ngayon. We are going to unite sana to oppose the return of the Marcoses and of course President Duterte in Malacanang. It is clear naman, Pia, that we are part of the opposition eh. So I hope na makilala naman ng lahat yan. Marami kaming mga activists and human rights defenders na namatay under President Duterte precisely because he considers us as an opposition, a part of the opposition, at very scathing talaga yung attacks namin sa kanya, and is intolerant of dissent. We know that. So I'm not saying that the other political parties did not suffer death or may mga arrested din sila o posible may mga patay na rin sila. But I'm saying na we are genuinely opposing President Duterte. We did not support President Duterte in 2016. In fact, that is already clear para sa amin. No? If you look at the meeting, the avance of Makabayan in 2016, we said there, right there sa last speech of the election, anong gusto nyo, kamay na bakal or presidenteng may puso? Klaro talaga yung aming decision doon. Now, the fact that some members of Makabayan campaigned for President Duterte should not sana parang render the entire Makabayan process as parang Duterte na kami. The fact that certain liberal parties, for example, supported Duterte, I wouldn't go to the lengths of saying that Liberal Party went for President Duterte. So sa akin, ganun yung context namin dyan na titingnan ng lahat.
Yeah.
But in any case, nandito na tayo sa 2022 right now, and I hope opposition mag-unite ang opposition against him.
Oo nga eh. Kasi from the outside, para bang what it looks like, Attorney Neri, is para bang lahat nagtuturuan ba? Kasi ikaw, parang ganun na nangyayari, no? So,
yes.
You know, I wanted to ask you, in your estimation, no, what do you think really is getting in the way of uniting or unifying the opposition against a possible Duterte Marcos? Kasi yun ang parang yun ang common, ano? Yun ang sinasabi ng apat na grupo eh. So if you were to say it in one word, Attorney Neri, ano po ba, what is getting in the way of unity?
Mahirap sa one word, Pia, di ba? Kasi there are various reasons there, I guess. Hindi mo pwedeng i-sum up. Yeah. Pero is it uphill? For a long period of time, Duterte was so very effective in intimidating everybody. Kaya hindi talaga nakabangon ng opposition for a long time Controlled niya mga LGUs, intimidated yung mga checks and balance institutions, nanguhuli, may patayan, gano'n. Now, the good thing there is there are efforts to unify the opposition. And the other good thing is na disintegrate the Duterte Alliance. May giyera ang Hongkong, may giyera with PDP Laban, may giyera within PDP Laban, ang pro-US at pro-China naglalaban within the Duterte camp. Many of their subalterns are now transferring to other candidates. I guess that's the positive side there also, other than the fact that we're still trying to unify the opposition after all these months.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're pointing to two, well, in a way, sir, external factors, because the disintegration, like you said, of the Duterte alliances with so many groups, and then yung the Duterte administration going after going after all these critics of his, no? But what is it within? Kasi syempre may external at may internal din
Yes.
Ano po ba yung problema? May internal there is something within itong apat na grupo, pati yung sa inyo, that is preventing this. What is it?
Well, President Leni Robredo tried to talk to the other opposition candidates at siguro na nalaman niya kung ano ang dahilan dito. Para sa akin talaga yung merong sigurong dahil walang history ng cooperation, yung all the opposition, all those candidates running against the Duterte candidate, siyempre, there is the need to magpakilalanan sila. And I hope magkakaroon ng trust basis din among themselves. Now, mga supporters, you cannot control your supporters. But ang palagi kong sinasabi, ang mga candidates themselves, they should not be swayed by the voices sa social media. If they want to unite, they should do that. Is that possible still? Well, it's more difficult now. Nagsasagutan na yung mga presidential candidates. But I would like to think na somewhere along the way, they will realize that only one of them can win. And only one of them can therefore, they should support the other who can win, ba? Duterte will be very vindictive if he will go after all opposition candidates na lumaban sa kanya if he returns to Malacanang.
Yeah, well, I like how you're so positive about this, parang sinasabi po niyo, somewhere down the road you will unify.
Yeah.
Sandali lang po, Attorney Neri, kanina sabi po ninyo, President Leni Robredo, or did you say Vice before you said President? Nag-slip of the tongue po ba kayo? Or, did I hear you right? Huh?
I meant Vice President.
You meant Vice President, but you said
I meant
President.
Vice President. Sorry,
okay,
sorry about that.
Okay, pero siya na po ba yung pero siya na po ba yung pinili ninyo ng makabayan or siya na ba yung napupusuan ninyo? Kasi may ganyan sir. Ano yan, slip of the tongue, ganon?
No, yeah, slip of the tongue yun. Kasi Vice President, ano lang yun, slip of the tongue. Klaro ang aming pronouncement yan. Wala pa kaming pinipili na kandidato sa ngayon. In fact, si Vice President Lenny, we've been wanting to talk to her for some time to discuss issues and platforms. Unfortunately, it failed for some reasons. But we're still hopeful. At sinabi niya that was still open at yung issue ng platform very important.
Okay.
Tia, I'd like to stress lang, the issue of platform is very important for us because we have constituencies. Now, inclusion in the slate is part lang yan, 50% lang yan. But it's not merely what is in it for me. It is also what is in it for the people. So we need to go to our members and say, well, this candidate believes in land reform or believes against contractualization or whatever. And it's very important, crucial sa aming mga discussion. And because we have not talked with the Vice President, hindi kami makadecide sa ngayon.
Okay. So in inclusion in the slate, let's leave it for a little later in the show. No? But I wanted to ask about itong yung sinasabi po yun, you have to go back to your people and explain kung ano ba yung platform nito, ganito ganyan. No? So ang isang issue dito is yung mga makakasama mo sa slate. Meron po ba kayong ayaw makasama sa slate na para bang as far as you're concerned, non-negotiable, I'm not gonna take it kung kasama ito si so or so and so sa slate. Pero po ba kayong ganon or you're not going to be choosy?
In the first place, when Vice President Robredo excluded me from her announced slate, my position and our position has been, it's her prerogative. It's the prerogative of the presidential candidate to choose their senator. I don't think it's in my place to tell her what to do, di ba? So, maybe I could agree or disagree with some of the slate, but in the end, it's her choice. So, I don't think I will intervene doon sa kanyang slate and tell her. Now, supporters and other allies and so on of President Lenny Robredo, of course, they hold the right to speak. But me, I would be presumptuous probably to say na, oy, pag mapili ako dyan, ayoko ng ganyan, ayoko ng ganyan. Secondly, and more importantly, dapat ang stress na natin dito, unification of the opposition. Hindi pwedeng magtirahan na, ayoko niyan. It will create more dissension. Katawanan tayo ni Duterte at ni Marcos dito. So para sa akin, mas yun ang focus siguro. And let the president or the presidential candidate, whoever, I mean, Isko and Senator Manny and Lenny, to decide kung sinong senatorial candidates nila. Prerogative nila yan. And I don't think I will say that to Lenny Robredo about her slate.
Okay, marami po tayong tanong para sa inyo, Attorney Nery Colmenares, senatorial aspirant. We're going to get to that in just a bit so we can find out more about your views and plans should you win a seat. And also, later on in the show, in music, Tony Bennett's new album, making for another achievement for this 95-year-old jazz icon. Details when we come back.
Nagsimula sa isang pangarap. Ako na po, ma'am. Ika'y tutulungang ibahin ang buhay na nakasanayan.
24 months ka na sa pag-ibig.
Panghulog na ako sa motor.
Uy, bagong motor!
Gagawa na ang bang para mapaghandaan ng forever. At harapin ang bukas ng may maaasahan. Simulan mo na ang forever mo ngayon. Fund your forever with Pag-ibig Fund.
Register today! Love is all about time. Di minamadali ang pagpapasarap. Like the love in every Pure Foods ready to eat. Slow cooked and ready in 8 minutes. Para may time ka sa mga mahal mo. Because love takes time.
San Miguel Flavor Beer! Game! Magmahal sa kaaway, mas matamis ang buhay. Make life sweet with San Miguel Flavor Beer with the deliciously refreshing flavors of apple, lychee, and lemon with just the right beer buzz. Bili na sa suking tindahan.
For my babies, only vet-approved Nutri-Chunks puppies. The only one with active boost and prebiotics na Pampalisto. Made with real meat with essential nutrients to help them grow strong and healthy. Happiness! Listo, ganado sa Nutri-Chunks puppies.
Manong Joe po.
At Ate Maita,
Ngayong October, bahagyang tumaas ang overall electricity rates ng 3 centavos per kilowatt hour. Bunga ito ng pagtaas ng transmission charge.
Pag tag-ulan, mahirap maglaba at magpatuyo. Kaya ang latest online shopping budol, portable washing machine at dryer. Easy to use daw at space saving. Bright idea nga ba ito, Engineer Alfred?
Ayon sa Meralco Power Lab test, sa portable washing machine, 27 centavos ang konsumo kada gamit. Sa portable dryer naman, less than 2 pesos per use.
Apat na shirts, laba at tuyo, higit 2 pesos lang? Carry ang konsumo. Perfect pang mabilis ang laban ng uniforms.
At para mas mapadali ang pag-manage nyo ng konsumo, abangan this October ang bago at mas maliwanag na Meralco bill na magbibigay ng
More power to you!
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. Still with us is Makabayan senatorial aspirant Neri Colmenares. Attorney Neri, there are a few candidates on the slate of VP Leni Robredo who have, to say it very mildly, have reservations about you. What do you think of that? For example, Sani Trillanes.
Well, when we were informed by the camp of the Vice President Leni Robredo about more than 2 weeks ago that there were objections, and we were informed it was Senator Trillanes. I didn't raise it. We didn't raise it anytime. Even after her exclusion of me in her announcement 2-3 days ago, when I said, it's her prerogative, I didn't mention about the objections because I have no intention, Pia, of diverting the issue towards that. Anybody in the senatorial slate would have all the right to say no or yes to that one, and it's up for the Vice President to decide. Now, so sa akin, ang unity ng opposition is more important now, and that is the prerogative of the Vice President again, if she listens to the part of her senatorial slate or not. If she listens, then again, wala naman ako magawa doon, di ba? But if she believes in that the Makabayan can help, our national machinery can help, our 3.5 million voter base can help, our poll watchers can help, our social media warriors can help, then so be it. Then we will be very happy. What is clear, we want to defeat Duterte and Marcos here. So whether we're part of any slate or not, we will pursue this endeavor to make sure that they are not in Malacanang in 2022.
So you're willing to set aside all these differences. I mean, I can't help but say, it sounds so refreshing. It sounds so strange to hear you talk this way. Although you always had this very malumanay tone of voice.
Yeah, I'd like to add there, Pia, this election is really very different from the other elections. This is ako survival na ito natin lahat ang at stake dito. We cannot have another 6 years of this kind of COVID response. We cannot have another 6 years of pinamimigay ang ating mga yamang dagat sa China. We cannot have that. So this is the survival sa stake. So iba ang requirements sa lahat ngayon. At sinasabi ko sa mga kasama namin na kahit we can demand from the candidates to unite, but we must also show among ourselves to unite. How can we unite the candidates if we show among ourselves that we don't unite, diba? So we don't have the moral authority to impose on them the unities if we ourselves cannot have unity. So I'd like to focus on that because Duterte will probably win if we continue bickering at each other. So I'm not, call me eternal optimist, but I think there will still be the chance that people will realize that this is survival of the Filipino people is at stake, and we will unite no matter what because we want to defeat Duterte and Marcos in 2022.
Yes. Okay, well, Attorney Neri, you mentioned the pandemic and China, for example. I have a question about this health crisis. No, if you were to have a say, let's say there is the president who is elected is on your side and you get elected to the Senate, how would you want to have the health crisis managed differently? I know you are a lawyer and you can out-talk anyone, but then, baka you can summarize that.
Free healthcare, very important. Kaya ng gobyerno ba tustusan ang libreng gamot at libreng paggamot? I believe so. Kung kaya natin mangako ng free tuition, we can do free healthcare sa lahat without any qualms. Pag pumunta ka sa ospital, libre hospitalisasyon, libre konsultasyon, libre operasyon. And we can do that. Secondly, ang COVID response natin must not only be vaccine-centered. It must also focus on contact tracing. It must also focus on mass testing. Because unless we do these things, hindi paulit-ulit lang yung COVID, di ba? So, bakuna is very important, very good, but we also need these other aspects ng COVID response, which Duterte is not doing. And I don't believe in the long-generated kind of COVID response na utang ng utang na hindi naman ang mamamayang Pilipino magbabayad dyan. He's borrowed 2.6 trillion last year, he's going to borrow 3 trillion last year. Saan napunta yung perang yun? Maraming hindi nakatanggap ng ayuda. So, yung ayuda would be very important din. Sorry, lawyer of me to talk longer than I should.
Yes. Attorney Neri, yes or no questions na lang po, no explanation, yes or no. First, do you favor easier public access to the SALN of the President, Vice President, members of Congress, Senators, Congressmen? Yes or no?
Yes, access dapat sa public. Makabayan as always issued our SALNs publicly.
Okay, sir, wala na pong explanation. Do you support lifting foreign ownership limits in the Constitution? Yes or no? I think I know what you're going to say. Do you favor the reimposition of the death penalty for drug-related crimes? Yes or no?
No.
Should the sitting president be allowed to run for VP in the next... Should the sitting president be allowed to run for VP in the next election, although President Duterte hasn't filed the COC? Okay, no. Do you favor resuming peace talks with communist rebels? Yes or no?
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes. This is important.
And lastly, should the country be more aggressive in protecting its maritime interests in the West Philippine Sea? Yes or no, sir?
Yes, very much. We should be more aggressive than now.
Attorney Neri Colmenares, thank you, sir, very much for joining us tonight here on Newsnight on Up Close. Salamat po, sir.
Maraming salamat din po.
When we return, netizens are getting excited to hear a K-pop track in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and more music news with Tony Bennett making another career milestone at 95 years old. Details after a quick break. watching Newsnight. I'm Pia Ontiveros. A diversified conglomerate is keeping its promise to help uplift communities by providing livelihood. A new market and free fishing boats are just some projects that San Miguel Corporation conducted or brought to a community in Sariaya, Quezon. Here's Paige Javier.
Getting a good catch also meant breaking the bank for some fishermen living at the San Miguel Christian Gayeta homes in Sariaya, Quezon. That's because they do not have their own boats, leaving them no choice but to either borrow boats or join other trips. This will now be a thing of the past for these fishermen, following the donation of 18 boats by the San Miguel Corporation.
Yung first batch po ay 36 na bangka na i-donate natin sa 69 na mangingisda dito sa Sariaya. Ngayon po ay iba naman ang ating i-donatan, yung isang korporasyon na mag-manage po ng ating San Miguel Market para maisigurado po yung tuloy-tuloy na supply ng isda doon sa ating San Miguel Market.
One beneficiary says the new boats will help them cut costs and ensure exclusivity of their catch.
Napakalaki po ma'am na tulong sa amin yan dahil unang-una hindi na namin bibilihin yan. Binigay na sa amin ng libre yan kaya napakalaking pasasalamat po namin dahil yung pamumuhay po ng bawat isa na mamibigyan yan ay napakalaking tulong.
Aside from the donation, SMC continues to equip its beneficiaries with TESDA-accredited skills training. More residents are taking part in the free courses available like hog racing, organic farming, and welding. In the meantime, SMC formally opened its market run by its Sariaya beneficiaries. It's a one-stop shop where one can buy various products like fish, meat, fruit, vegetables, and even medicine. Residents believe the market will be a big help for those nearby.
Lahat ng nabibili dito, abot kaya, yung ganyan. At kinakaya naman ng iba.
Napakalaking tulong sa amin itong San Miguel Market kasi dito nagkaroon kami ng pag-asa na makaahon sa hirap.
Ayos naman maganda naman para sa taga rito. Hindi na kami lalayo.
Okay, marami kang mabibili mura. Pag sa bayan ka pumunta, mamamasahe ka ng malaki. Dito, wala ka ng pamasahe.
San Miguel hopes to expand its integrated food hub to reach more residents in the Quezon province.
Papalakihin po natin yung ating San Miguel Market. Nakaplano na po na yan po ay i-expand natin. Yan po ang vision ng ating Pangulo ng San Miguel Corporation na si Ginoong Ramon Ang. At maging distribution center po yan ng mga San Miguel food products dito sa Quezon hanggang sa Camarines Sur and Sorsogon.
The corporation aims to continue delivering its promise to improve lives and to leave no one behind. Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
In sports, the Hanoi 31st Southeast Asian Games are finally pushing through mid-May next year. The Philippines is set to compete in 39 sports, with the country's Olympic Committee submitting a roster of 626 athletes for the event. The Games were supposed to be held from November 21 to December 2 this year, but were postponed because of the pandemic. POC President Abraham Tolentino said specific dates will be announced by organizers soon. And making the rounds on social media, the next Marvel motion picture may feature a track from K-pop sensation BTS. Online articles said the Eternals official soundtrack will include Friends from the group's previous album. Marvel trended on Twitter after the news dropped, along with congratulations for BTS member Jimin, who produced the song. Fans can see the action-packed film starring Angelina Jolie while waiting for the BTS tune starting November 5th. And still in music, Tony Bennett keeps churning out hit after hit and breaking even more records at 95 years old. The Grammy Award winner set the Guinness World Record for being the oldest person to release an album of new material. This was after dropping Love for Sale with Lady Gaga just last month. The collaborative album earned Bennett his 5th world record after 70. That's 70 years in the music industry. Have a listen to the duet.
If you want the thrill of love, she's been through the mill of love. Oh no! New love, every love but true love for sale.
Bennett is famous for singing tracks like I Left My Heart in San Francisco and Fly Me to the Moon, turning him into a music icon in the 50s until today. We have 68 days before Christmas, and that is it for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Santos.
Oh, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa. Suportahi ang inyong immune system para mabatukan ini ang mga viruses. Sama sa corona o uban pa. Pag Herbalaya Food Supplement every day. Aduna kini mga natural herbs o antioxidants nga mo pa kusog sa imong immune system. Batukan ang mga viruses. Mag Herbalaya Food Supplement matag adlaw. Inyong mapalit sa inyong mga suking butika bisan asa. Herbalaya Food Supplement. Atong saligan aron virus malikayan.
Mahalagang paalala, ang produkto nito ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamitin panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Gikan sa Tuna Capital of the Philippines, General Santos. Nagsilya sa gikusgan ng 5,000 watts. Kini ang silyaanan sa RPN. RPN. Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. DXDX 693 kHz. Ang inyong Radyo Ronda sa syudad sa mga kampiyon. Live to the world, pinaagi sa FB page, karon mag-download na. Pinaagi sa Google Play o Apple Store, YouTube o Twitter. Alang sa mas ipakusgan ng mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran o kalingawan. DXDX Size 93 ang mas ipakusgan na inyong Radyo Ronda.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Cerebral palsy is an umbrella term for a group of neurological disorders that affects muscle movement and coordination. Now, this physical disability is often seen as early as childhood. It's caused by abnormal brain development or injury of the developing brain. And as a result, the part of the brain that's responsible for movement, coordination, and posture is affected. And in most cases, brain injury that leads to cerebral palsy occurs during pregnancy. Today on the show, we'll learn more about this condition, how it's diagnosed, treated, managed, as well as prevented, and what's the long-term outlook for people with the condition. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Welcome to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Cerebral palsy is the most common motor disability in childhood. And as the name implies, cerebral means your brain, and palsy means a weakness or maybe a problem using your muscle. Based on recent studies, though, an estimated 17 million people in the world are affected by cerebral palsy. Our guests are here today to help us better understand this condition. With us is Dr. Ludela Calotes Castillo. She's a pediatric neurologist and neuromuscular specialist from the University of the Philippines General Hospital and Manila Medical Center. Also with us is Dr. Teresita Joy Evangelista, who is the head of Rehabilitation Medicine Division at the Philippine Children's Medical Center. Cerebral palsy. Now, except for its mildest form, cerebral palsy can be evident in the first around 12 to 18 months of a child's life. And signs and symptoms can vary from one child to the next, and they can range from mild to severe. They can also become more apparent over time and based on the type of CP that the child has. Now, the most common type of cerebral palsy is the spastic type. It affects approximately 80% of patients. Now, my first question is para kay Doc Ludi. Could you tell us more about this more common type or most common type of cerebral palsy?
Usually po, we notice them that they're stiffer than usual. And that with that stiffness in their limbs, they can have really difficulty early on with their motor development. Nahihirapan silang mag-roll, minsan umupo, maglakad, at ito sila, kadalasan din, lalo na pag ang stiffness ay buong katawan, nagkakaroon din sila ng ibang comorbidities katulad ng seizures or learning disability.
Dr. Ludi, you bring up a good point because I'd like to ask, aside from nahihirapan mag-roll or nahihirapan maglakad, ano pa ba yung ibang mga basic challenges ng mga patients with spastic CP?
Unlike sa isang normal infant growing towards the first 2 years of life, for example, maraming challenges pwedeng mangyayari sa isang bata na may CP. Aside from movement, they can also have learning problems. Kasama dito yung speech delay because sometimes ang iba sa kanila may hearing problem as well, no? And some will also have difficulty with vision.
Mobility issues are certainly one of the most common problems, so something as simple like what you said as walking or crawling out of bed can be very difficult. And in some cases, a child with CP can experience pain. So let's explain that a little bit. Dr. Joy, bakit kaya nangyayari ito?
We sort of measure the children with CP versus that schedule, or what we call the developmental milestones. We check if they are delayed in the different aspects of development, no? From gross motor, yan na nga, yung sitting, standing, walking. Fine motor is the use of the hands, and also as mentioned, speech and language, and also self-help skills. They can develop spasticity, which is actually very common in these children. About 60% of them have spastic muscles. Spastic muscles, most people don't realize, are also painful muscles. Because when you try to stretch the muscle, pag pinilit mo siyang stretch, it becomes painful, no? So that the child will wince or iiyak siya, no? When you try to stretch a painful muscle. That's why you should also address spasticity.
Dr. Joy, talk to us about the way that you assess a child for therapy, a child with CP for therapy.
The team is composed of the doctor and the different therapists. The physical therapist usually takes care of or focuses on the gross motor abilities of the child, and the occupational therapist focuses more on the fine motor skills and the self-help skills of the child. So, tulong-tulong yung buong team in helping the child achieve yung mga milestones which are expected for that age. And it is through play para siya ay encouraged, no, to come for therapy. It is in the form of play. Kaya ang tawag sa kanya, play therapy. The evaluation is always individualized. The doctor makes the evaluation and also the therapist make their evaluation. And together, the team creates a program for the child, and we reassess periodically if these goals are achieved or still appropriate for the child.
Occupational therapy, of course, not only benefits the person with cerebral palsy, but also those around him or her. Now, Dr. Joy, meron bang tamang age para mag-umpisa ang therapy ang isang batang may CP?
The earlier, the better. If you suspect that there is some problems or delays in the child, please bring the child right away to the doctor, pediatric centers, no, for assessment and evaluation.
Some children with cerebral palsy also have problems controlling the muscles in their face, their tongue, their jaw, as well as their chest. And that affects their speech, among other things. Now, Dr. Ludi, could you tell us more about these type of challenges naman?
You look at the overall development of a baby. Therefore, speech actually is of course, it's an important milestone, and this actually should be should follow the oromotor function of the baby, meaning the baby should feed well first, should be able to swallow well first before he's able to speak properly later on. Okay, so this should be actually picked up early. The difficulty should be picked up early so that there will be more chance of recovery later on.
Now, Dr. Joy, given these speech problems, what type of therapy or support is available for children with CP here in our country?
We have very good pediatric centers all over the Philippines, and the training centers are also very good. Sabi ko nga sa mga patients though, and the parents rather, that maraming karpintero, pero hahanapin mo yung karpintero na magaling dito sa bata. So, please look for the centers who are very good for children.
Now, there are also those with cerebral palsy who suffer from neurological problems. Doc Ludi, can you help explain what these are naman and why they happen?
Cerebral palsy, as you said, no, a group siya of disorder because the brain experiences an injury or an insult early when the time that the brain is still developing. So therefore, any cause po, whether nagkaroon ng early infection ang baby, or there was an infection in the mom's womb, or there was a problem po sa oxygen, nagkaroon ng problem with birth, and that is actually the most common cause, no? Birth injury or birth problem. So these are the other common causes po of cerebral palsy.
A cure for cerebral palsy can still be a challenge. Physical, occupational, and speech therapy are among the ways to help improve the quality of life of an individual affected by it. Coming up, factors that put a baby at risk for the condition. Your health comes first here on the program. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. There are certain factors that put babies at risk for cerebral palsy. Doc Joy, we want to begin with one of the more common risk factors is that of low birth and low birth weight. Now, what's the science behind these two factors?
Okay, so it's very important that the mother stays healthy during her pregnancy. So she should go for regular prenatal checkups so that the obstetrician can monitor her weight and the child's weight and her condition and the child's condition. And then during delivery, it should be assisted by competent professionals. And then after delivery, you can still have cerebral palsy, but there should be an anticipatory reaction to any problem or little observations that may be seen in the child which appears to be not expected in the child.
Doc Ludi, when it comes to the risk factors, are there ways na yung mga mommies will be able to prevent this? To make sure that the brain of their baby suffers the least amount of risk of brain injury as possible?
Pinakamahalaga po na period is the first 1,000 days of life. Actually, that includes po yung pagkabuntis. Kasama na doon day 0, day 1 po yun, no? So after birth, there are a lot of things po that we can do, no, to prevent brain injury and possibly cerebral palsy as well. So ano po yun? To keep baby healthy. That's the general overview po. Tamang sustansya, magpabakuna on time, optimize babies safe play na hindi po magkaroon ng head trauma, hindi mahulog, or any form of injury.
RH incompatibility is also a risk factor for cerebral palsy. Now, for our viewers, RH incompatibility occurs when a mother's blood type is incompatible with her baby's blood type. Dr. Ludi, pag-usapan naman natin yon. Is that a strong risk factor for cerebral palsy?
It can be a risk factor, no? It can be a risk factor, but with good prenatal care, the OB team can actually, the OB and the pedia can actually help reduce the risks to babies' health as well, no? So it's not actually the most common cause. Ang most common cause is difficulty in delivery, no? Yung nawala ng oxygen at saka blood sa baby's brain. But it can be po a cause.
Could you talk about some of the illnesses that a mother can have during her pregnancy that can affect or that can influence a child having a CP?
Si mommy can also be infected early on, no, in the during the pregnancy. So with viruses such as yung tinatawag naming torch. So yun yung may toxoplasma, rubella, yung beke, mumps, chickenpox, at saka measles. Kadalasan po sa kanila ay preventable, no? Magpapabakuna si mommy, hindi po nakakatakot or hindi po yun contraindicated na magpapakuna during or before po
pregnancy for MMR, and then flu, even flu, no, vaccine during pregnancy. So yun po ang isang step na pwedeng ma-prevent ang isang infectious or like a viral infection in the brain that can cause cerebral palsy.
When we return, devices, medicines, and other possible treatments for cerebral palsy. We care for the growing needs of our community. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk. Keep it here on CNN Philippines. Cerebral palsy refers to a group of disorders that affects muscle movement and coordination. And in many cases, vision, hearing, and sensation are also affected. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome back to the program. Dr. Ludi, what are some of the medications given for a child with CP, and how is it usually administered?
Usually, ang common na mga medication that we give would be baclofen. We can also give clonazepam, diazepam. Sila po yung mga common terms that we actually give. And because there are also other problems in these children, we also treat the seizures as well.
Dr. Joy, is surgery ever an option sa mga batang may cerebral palsy?
Yes, we also have the injectable medicine, the botulinum toxin, which is very well used now for spasticity. Surgery may be an option if there are fixed deformities already or merong joint dislocation, then we may refer the child for surgery. If that particular deformity or joint dislocation is getting in the way of the acquisition of the skill, especially standing and walking, then surgery may be a consideration.
What about the family support, the support system ng isang batang may CP? What is it like, or what advice can you prepare the parents?
We always deal with the parents. They're very crucial in the development of the child and the healing of the child. We always say that the child does not know that he is not normal. So treat them as normal as you can.
Now, Doc Ludi, speaking of limitations as well, what type of physical activity can a child with CP engage in safely? Of course, every parent wants their child to be able to play with other children as well, but we have to set some limitations or realizations para sa mga parents.
It depends on the degree of brain insult or even the severity of cerebral palsy sa simptomas nila. Kung minsan po, isang kamay lang, isang side lang po ang disability. Minsan po, mild lang din, konting difficulty lang sa walking but they can walk. So now that in that case po, it should be tailor-fit.
Now before we go, Dr. Ludi, do you have any advice for our viewers, especially those who have children with CP?
We focus on the ability, and the moment po that we're able to recognize the needs of each of our patients with cerebral palsy or our family with cerebral palsy, then we will be able to understand what they are capable of doing po, and what are the things that they like to do or prefer to do as well. So I think for each family, for each patient, what would be best is different.
Okay.
So it should be tailor-fit.
Yes, I agree. And Dr. Joy, if there were 3 things that our viewers would take away from this episode on cerebral palsy, what would it be?
Well, number 1, don't lose hope. Okay? And I have actually 2 students. No, ma'am, do you know that I have cerebral palsy? One is a dentist and one is a doctor. So now they're dentists and doctors. So they were able to achieve very high functions despite cerebral palsy. Okay, so these children are blessings. We need the parents to support them, the whole family actually to support them. And as mentioned, that there is hope for them to lead very full and functional lives.
Now, cerebral palsy affects each person in a different way. Families will have different experiences, but whether the case is mild or severe, there are a number of ways that parents especially can help their child achieve their best. With that, I'd like to thank our guest for today, pediatric neurologist Dr. Ludela Calotes Castillo and rehabilitation medicine specialist Dr. Teresita Joy Evangelista. Marami pong salamat, doctors, for joining us today. Thanks for watching our program today. Be safe and healthy. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez.